Try that. Good afternoon, guys. I'm Vanessa Squires. I work with a company called Fizz. We're a word-of-mouth marketing agency here in Atlanta. And I want to welcome you to one of our next sessions for the marketing track. Jason Prance. So I knew I liked Jason when I read his bio, and he said that he introduced himself as a proud geek dad and a lucky husband. That's a good start. Jason, for the last 5 years, has been on the agency side. He's been working with brands like General Mills, TaylorMade, Mizuno, GLOCK, and Aaron's. And today he works for a great business, Swarm Agency. He is going to take us through complex consumer journey and what's called path to purchase. So, Jason Prance.
Thank you. Well, it's a real privilege to be here. This is a very beautiful place, and it's also an honor to come back for a second time. And Kashi and the SuperNova team having me over to talk a little bit about something else that's pretty complex. Last year we talked about analytics and superheroes, and I'm going to try my best to keep this conversation as fun and engaging as possible because it's a lot to cover, as you can imagine. So to kind of kick things off and have a little fun, if you haven't already, pull out your mobile phone. I know everybody's got them, and I hope that I'll be giving you guys plenty of tweetable content to put out there. And go to your web browser on your phone and go to Kahoot. That's KAHOOT.IT. And then it's really simple. Just put in that pin, and you should be well on your way. It's going to be a little fun. We're going to start by talking about the consumer journey by asking you guys a few questions about how you heard about SuperNova South. And I promised SuperNova South too I'd give them all this data so that they could use it. So, ooh, we got quite a few people already. Good. Well, that's enough to get started. If you guys want to go ahead and join in again, just go to your browser, type in the URL kahoot.it, and 824-203. We'll get you in there. So, let's have a little bit of fun. First, I want to make sure this thing is working. So, we'll get this started. If you miss this first question, don't worry. This is just a test question. I just want to see how it's working for everybody. All right, so who's your favorite superhero? We've got Thor, we've got Captain America, we've got Iron Man, the Hulk. I thought I'd bring some of the stuff from last year back. Oh. Here, I'll show you. It may not work. We may have to keep going, guys. This was a real risky maneuver because of Wi-Fi and all that good stuff. Oh well. I'll give it another second. Okay. We'll try it again at some other time. That's all right. Let's get started. All right, so I wanted to kind of start in a place where we could talk about the title of the reason that you're here, the complex consumer journey. I wanted to kind of hone in on complex because that was used very intentionally. Complex is not the same thing as complicated, and I get really motivated a lot when sometimes words can get used haphazardly and things can get pretty confusing sometimes, especially when you're dealing with an already complex situation. That's when things really start to get complicated, but they're not the same thing. I'm a huge fan of TED Talks. Does anybody else enjoy TED Talks? Get motivated? Yeah, lots of people. Okay. And this is kind of strange, but I wanted to kind of start by talking about Nicholas Perroni. He's an animal scientist. And a few weeks ago, I was watching this TED Talk and was listening to how he is tracking the behavior of all different types of animals and learning their social behaviors, how they work together, and all these kinds of things, from meerkats to bats and all other kinds of things you can imagine. And some of the data and some of the complexity theory things that he was talking about, I was just like, holy crap, this is what I do every day as a marketer. And it's really kind of all the same stuff, especially nowadays where we've seen the proliferation of mobile devices, multiple platforms, different browsers, all kinds of things that consumers are engaging with you or your product or your brand in some way, shape, or form. Nicholas talked a lot about how they tracked all these bats, actually. Now, Bats have a peanut-sized brain, very, very tiny. So they weren't really sure about exactly what the capabilities were to actually talk to each other or communicate. So they put little tracking devices on all of them, and they observed what scientists do. They first looked at the data over time, and they couldn't find anything that was actually useful. We as marketers, I know I do, pull up Google Analytics or some type of analytics tool all the time, and what's the first thing you do? Like, give me the last 7 days, give me the last 30 days. Sometimes you can spot trends and they're very helpful, but most of the time when you're looking at consumer behavior or bad behavior, it actually doesn't help you out a whole lot. So they simplified. They used complexity theory to actually identify simple individual rules, and that is all it took to explain the society or the social complexity of bats and how they talk to each other. And this graph was one of the graphs that he showed that proved that they are very social animals, and they actually look out for each other. And when one dies, another one comes in and helps out. Even when there's like a really massive, terrible thing that happens to their group, they actually band together even more. It was really interesting. And again, it just made me think a lot about what we do as marketers every day as trying to figure out consumers. Now, their brain is a little bit larger than a peanut-sized brain, so we have a lot of work to do. What we're trying to do is eliminate the chaos and remove all kind of complexity. And here, this is total chaos, right? But you add milk to the equation, and all of a sudden, all the Scotties actually find a nice, simple way to get as much milk as possible. And it actually comes out to be pretty beautiful, right? It's not complicated. It's a little bit complex, a little bit. This is probably a more accurate example of what I'm trying to talk about. On the left, we have a complex system of starlings, which is a murmuration, and it's really interesting because you have thousands of these tiny birds that are just talking to each other all the time, and they just know where to go. It's beautiful. If you've never seen it before, just look it up on YouTube. And then on the right, you have a complicated contraption, which is just ridiculous. And a lot of times as marketers, I think we usually default and we just go right straight to making things overly complicated. And that's what I'm here to do today. I really hope that, if anything, we can try to break down a lot of things and really simplify. These complex systems have many interacting parts. They behave according to simple individual rules that consumers behave, and they turn into emergent properties, which basically means that the sum of its parts are greater than the whole. 1 + 1 = 3. When you do everything all together in the right way, you start to see an actual lift in what you're trying to do, and one does not equal 1 anymore. So again, we're going to try to simplify complexity. So I wanted to start there. So let's talk a little bit about consumer journey. I've done a lot of research, path to purchase, funnels. Most of the frameworks and models and tools that I've seen, I just absolutely hate. But I wanted to put this up here because this is kind of the best summary that I can give from what I've seen out there over the last few weeks of research, which is, it's a model. It describes a theoretical journey. It's very consumer-based. It's a consumer view. The ultimate goal, of course, is purchase, but it doesn't stop there. It goes beyond that. It's a framework that can provide significant value as long as there are some basic universal truths, which is the simple rules I'm talking about, and we're going to go into that a lot more. And it's a tool. Actually, that's actually the best one, I think. It's a tool. We all need some kind of a tool to work with in order to solve a problem. My description of it is this. I think, quite simply, a consumer journey is a personal experience that every consumer takes that eventually leads to a purchase, but the journey actually never truly ends. So if we stop right there at purchase, and I think some of you all probably know this already, it actually just opens up an opportunity to go into experience and loyalty and other types of things. But the reason that we want to talk about the journey today and we want to simplify things is we want to talk about what you get out of it when you actually understand it and you start to work with it. So by knowing the consumer's needs, behaviors, motivations, influencers, sources of information, where they get that information from, we then can align creative, content, messaging, media, and offers. This is not a end-all be-all, but again, this is all the kind of things that rise to the top for me. So how many designers do we have in the room? Any designers? Not many. Okay. Well, I want to explain what the consumer journey means to some of the more common people that really have to interact with it. Starting with designers. A designer likes or needs the consumer journey and understanding of it to know what the context of the users are, to gain a really clear understanding of where the user has come from, and what they're really trying to achieve. From a user experience standpoint, from a design perspective, that's all a challenge, and a consumer journey, understanding that journey, obviously helps that. Any copywriters in the room? Writers? Couple, 3, 4? A copywriter needs to understand what questions the users have and how they're feeling so that you can answer those questions and have a really good response to their feelings. This is a little bit of social too. I'm sure some of you are in social media and you understand how important it is to respond. How many marketers do we have in the room? Okay, just about everybody. Okay. So marketers have the biggest job here. We need to identify opportunities to enhance the consumer experience and drive consumers from one stage of the journey to the next. That is our job. We have to try to engage them and listen and learn and move them from one stage to the next. And then work with all the other practice areas, of course, in order to get that to happen. So let's talk about consumers. On the consumer side, what's happened is they're say goodbye to the funnel, like the description said, forget the funnel, it's not a straight line anymore. You can call it path to purchase, but that path is very divergent now. Consumers now interact with brands across various devices and environments. They share their experiences along the way. As they go, they get the same types of things that we've been doing for a very long time now, getting information from a friend or word of mouth. It's just happening much more quickly. Consumers now expect you to meet them where they are. And several years ago, most brands that I worked with always talked about the hub. Can we get people back to our hub of information so that we can drive them to the hub and then just get them into the hub and then we're good and we'll convert them and it'll be great. You can't really do that anymore and be as effective. You need to meet the consumers where they are and whatever devices they're using, platforms they're using, apps they've downloaded, and places they visited in the physical world as well as the digital. And last but not least, consumers make decisions in the moment more quickly than ever before, which I kind of alluded to, but it needs to be mentioned because Google's talking about it a lot now. I'm going to mention it a few times about micro moments. Has anybody heard of micro moments before? Micro moments? No? Okay. I'll spend a little bit more time doing that. So here's what you and I need to do. And it sounds pretty bad. We must deal with a significantly more complex situations that our consumers are going through and we're trying to track. We must be able to anticipate, track, and learn from various behaviors. We must engage and respond to consumers across multiple channels. We must be quick to react. I think right now on Facebook, in order to even get the little badge of honor for customer service, you have to have a response time of just a few hours. So that's really hard for some larger brands to try to do. It's also very expensive. So we've got a lot of work to do. However, to look on the bright side, and I'm going to spend most of the time looking at the bright side, marketers have more opportunities to engage and influence consumers than ever before. All of this complexity can be turned on its head into opportunities if you just know where to go and look for it. So let's go ahead and start mapping the journey. Everything starts with a need, and this isn't rocket science, this isn't new. I just wanted to start somewhere, and I put a circle there because the circle is really simple. The consumer has a need, right? You can't buy something, you can't learn something, you can't really, experience new things unless you somehow make up a decision in your mind that, hey, I need to get something, or I want something, or I desire something. And those needs are, in my opinion, surrounded by moments. These moments are what have really become more complex over the years due to technology and the internet and the Internet of Things, for that matter, wearable devices, you name it. So all these moments surround the needs that consumers go through. And people are making decisions in these moments, large decisions than ever before. We work with retail clients, we work with mortgage companies, we work with wireless carriers, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of different varying levels of complexity and research that you need to go through before you make a buying decision, especially for a mortgage. The house is the biggest purchase you'll ever make. But studies have shown, Google studies have been put out there of people using mortgage calculators while they're in line at the airport, and they attribute that experience waiting in line at the airport and using the mortgage calculator that they used as one of the first or most important interactions that just kind of got them started. And then they conducted pretty much their entire transaction or their entire journey to finding a mortgage that was right for them online, digital only. I think that's really compelling. So we need to understand these micro moments because they're happening. Brands have to really catch up to how quickly it's happening, and these are just a lot of tidbits. I'm not going to bore you guys with a lot of data, but there's a lot of tweetable stuff in here, so if you want to do that, go ahead. But there are I want to know moments. These is somebody exploring or researching, but not yet in the purchase mode. All right, so 60% of smartphone users turn to their smartphones to learn more about something that they saw in a TV commercial. We're seeing a whole lot of correlation between that second screen experience and what TV ads do to mobile search. There's the I want to go moments. Twice as many near me searches have happened this year compared to the previous year. So that's any kind of a search that's, I'm looking for pizza near me, I'm looking for, a comedy club near me, just anything. The third one is I want to do moments. So this is I want to learn how to do something. Searches related to how-to type of queries on YouTube have grown 70% year over year. Pretty big numbers. You're looking at twice over 70% increase. Again, these are just all being referred to as moments, and I just want you guys to keep thinking about the needs and the moments for right now. And then, of course, there's the I want to buy moments. This is a little bit further down that funnel that doesn't exist as much anymore, but this is, I'm just looking for something to buy. Maybe this is just a simple decision, right? This is a simple purchase decision that I need to make. 82% of smartphone users consult their phone while they're in a store, retail experience. We're seeing from Zero Moment of Truth, which has been around for a little while, that Google put out in 2011, we're seeing things like people searching for what they're about to buy while they're in the store. That's an extremely short distance of time between being in the moment of buying something to actually just a few minutes later buying it. So we need to actually really understand all that stuff. So I mentioned terminologies. There's a lot of them out there. I just went ahead and grabbed all the things that I've seen and heard before that make up the marketing objectives or the consumer states that people go through. This is just a few of them. So I'm going to try to simplify it. We're going to talk really simple here. So whatever the form the map is, whatever the form that you decide on, don't get hung up on it. Okay? The map should contain both analytical and anecdotal research, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But don't make it complex. It's really easy to get caught up into multiple routes that the user might take, but we want to start here. This is also not meant to map, and in most cases, even in fairly complex projects, we don't try to necessarily map every single possible outcome, or else you're going to end up in analysis paralysis, and you're just never really going to get out of the hole you dug for yourself. So you really want to start somewhere simple. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to add a few other paths in here. At the top level, of course, there's awareness. A customer or a consumer cannot buy something from you unless they know that you exist. So to slow things down a little bit, even though purchasing decisions and moments happen at the speed of light these days, we still have to really think about awareness. And sometimes awareness is not that important depending on your brand or your product or what your goals and objectives are, but it does start there in some way, shape, or form. The complex path that or the individual rules that consumers like to follow through that certainly change in velocity, right? So they just go right through like, oh yeah, I already know what that is. Well, then they were already aware, so let's skip that. Let's not focus on that. Let's focus on how we can get them to get our brand or our product to be in their consideration set, which is the orange area. So the consideration set is an area where we have a little bit more work to do now. It's not of, hey, it's like a conversation. Hi, my name is Jason Prance. Nice to meet you. It'd be kind of weird if I jumped right in and I just started telling you about a whole bunch of really detailed information that you know nothing about or you don't even know who I am. So we definitely want to start with awareness. Once we get into consideration, now we have to get really detailed into what the consumer's moments are and how we can start answering their questions for them and start adding value by providing helpful tools and content. Then we get into the decision, and that's the point of purchase. That's the point where they make a decision to go to an event or buy a product, you name it. And then, of course, after they buy that product, you have experience, and that's in the green. The experience, of course, is where marketers feel a little bit out of control because, of course, right now the product takes over, and you certainly hope that product or that experience or that event or that brand delivers on what you marketed. So let's start mapping it out a little bit. As I mentioned before, the needs are the circles, the moments are all the circles put together. the needs are within the circles, and this is just basically how I see it. I don't want to bore you guys to death with my view on a framework for decision journeys, but to me this makes sense. So there are a whole lot of things happening, and as people enter awareness, they move from the needs and the moments that they have to awareness, which would be potentially a banner ad. It could be a video view. It could be things that interrupt people or intercept people in their day-to-day lives. It could be a commercial. It could be a TV radio ad. Those are all good awareness tactics. Now, if somebody said, hey, we need to drive conversions and we need to be really budget conscientious and it needs to be based on a certain amount of spend and budget I have, we're going to start looking a little bit further down that path to try to find very, very effective ways. Awareness is, shotgun approach in many cases, but nowadays with the advent of programmatic and the ability to do audience segmentation and targeting and pooling and lookalike audiences and all these great things you could do, it's still kind of a shotgun approach. You're not going to see the efficiency that you would typically see at that high level, so you have to be careful when you play in that area, from my experience. Sometimes the journey ends. Sometimes the journey ends right in awareness for the consumers. Sometimes the journey ends in consideration. But as they go through, they start to get their needs fulfilled. And for consideration, there's usually a whole lot more interaction that happens in that stage. People talk to each other. The lines start to converge. They start to intersect. And they eventually get to a decision, purchase, where the needs are completely fulfilled. From that, you hope that people that experience your product are going to find their way back up and intercept or share word of mouth with other people that are in that consideration set. It's a whole lot easier to activate an audience that is already considering you compared to activating an audience that doesn't even know who you are. We have to really think about those different types of approaches. So on the left is the consumer state, which we've already talked about. On the right, it's cut off a little bit, but it says marketing objectives. And these are the things that we need to do in order to fulfill these goals and to push the consumer from one stage to the next. First and foremost, and I think this is the most important thing, is that we need to anticipate the need and learn the moments. So we need to truly understand what the need is, which is what I was hoping to do with that little game that didn't work. But I wanted to ask you guys, what is the reason you decided to go to a conference? What is the need that you were hoping to have fulfilled by going to a conference? Was it networking? Was it learning new things from speaking events? Was it vendors and suppliers that you wanted to meet, or did you just want to get away from work, right? All of those are acceptable answers, I guess. Then I wanted to go another step further and say, okay, well, what eventually made you aware? Like, I would like to get a show of hands for this one, actually. So let me ask you this: what was the first time you were hit by SuperNova South? Like, was it? I guess give me a show of hands for if it was an advertisement. Advertisement, one. Okay. How many were first hit by SuperNova South from an email for the very first time? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. How many people were hit by a colleague or a friend? Word of mouth. All right. Yeah, I'm not going to count all that. Okay. What else? There was another one I had in there. Social. How many people were first hit by social? Interesting. All right. So what I was going to do then is talk about how many people, if you could recall the difference. That was the first time you were hit, but what was the decision? What was the thing that actually made you decide to come to the show? And before I ask you the same round of answers, like was it social or was it email? I want to know, like, what are the things that you hope to get from the conference? Was it networking? Was that the most important thing? Raise your hand if it was networking. Okay. What about the like learning strategies that speakers have to share? Like just basically getting value from the speaking events. How many people is that? That's a lot. That's definitely the majority. Okay. And how many people just want to get away from work? All right, a few people. Nice. I don't believe you. It's all good. Okay, so that's really interesting. And these are the types of questions that we try to ask when we get into analytical research and anecdotal research. We want to anticipate the needs. We want to learn the moments that they go through. When they're checking their phone, checking their email, browsing Facebook, on Twitter, hashtag SNS15, what is this thing about, going through all of that. We want to try to do that ourselves, and we try to anticipate those needs, and we want to learn those moments that they go through. Then it's our job to introduce and educate. We certainly need to have the creative and the messaging on point so that it actually does exactly that. It doesn't try to close them too early in the process. After that, we want to create interest. We want to drive them to an actual decision. We want to drive them to consider our brand, our product, or our service, or our event. And then last but not least, we want to really persuade and compel them to buy. Now it's time to go for the deal, right? It's time to go for the close. We want to give them an offer, just like SuperNova South did. I think you probably saw the emails going out. It's like, 10% off or 50% off of this day only. Those types of flash sales and things like that are very effective, but not if you don't know what the heck SuperNova South is. So obviously it's very important to not only understand how the funnel works, which has been around for a very long time, but also what are all the moments in the devices and the browsers that people are using that we sometimes tend to forget. And the devil truly is in the details when it comes to this. So we're going to talk about anticipating the need and learning the moments first. There's analytical research, there's anecdotal research. It's kind of like the same thing as quantitative and qualitative. We want to understand what they do online, where they go, what they're saying, what questions they're asking, who they are, how they search, and so on. On the anecdotal research side, the one thing that we cannot do through the analytical side is truly understand the why to every single one of those questions. Very difficult to get, but also very important, because now emotion starts to get involved, and we start to understand feelings, and then we can, from a design perspective or a user experience perspective, we can actually start to really separate ourselves from the rest. This is why brand strategy is so important. So, on the analytical side, I'll just give you guys a few examples with some screenshots of reports or tools and systems that we typically use. There's cohort analysis, there's user path analysis like this, which tells us what they're doing online on a particular website, or maybe it's a mobile app. We want to understand what their path is. We want to know where they go. We want to know after they leave our website or our app, we want to know what do they spend their time doing. And we can use in-market segments that tell us, well, the majority of the people that are on our site go to employment websites, and then after that, they spend a lot of time on for sale and for rent real estate websites, and after that, dating services. So, we want to try to understand that better. We want to understand what they're saying. Social tools allow us to do this in a big way. This is just a basic tag cloud from when I worked with TaylorMade during the launch of their Rocket Balls product, which was a lot of fun. We want to understand what kind of questions they're asking, and we have lots of ways to do this thanks to Google. We can use Keyword Planner. We can go out there, and what we typically do, we'll start and say, well, what are the few keywords that we really need to focus on that we think are right, and then from there we just blow it out, and we say, okay, what types of things that are lexical or associated with the main keywords that we started with, what kind of questions are people asking? And Google gives us all to you. It's there for the taking. You just have to go out and get it. But you really have to be disciplined in it, because a lot of times data will lead you in the wrong directions, and you have to start to remind yourself that you're a consumer yourself, and you need to do the searches and see what else shows up. When you do those searches, don't just get into a silo of your analytical tools. Actually go out there and try it out for yourself. We want to understand who they are. Demographic information, very accessible now just about anywhere. We want to understand how they feel, which is usually not something we can get, but with sentiment analysis and social media, we can get pretty close to it. How much of the conversation is neutral versus positive versus negative. Anecdotal research is still a lot better than that. You get a lot of negative sentiment for Chick-fil-A on Sundays. It's not bad. They just want Chick-fil-A to be open because they want a chicken biscuit. So, and then there's what the trends say. The trends are still helpful. They allow us to know if we need to be entering a market or leaving a market, or from a broader stroke, what the trends are actually telling us to do. So that's analytical. On the anecdotal side, this is our approach that we take for anecdotal. It's really a lot about surveys and focus groups. At the very top level, we actually want to always start with the team that we're working with, or the stakeholders that we're working directly with that know the business, and we try to get to know the business as close as we can, as much as well as they know it. From there, we usually break out into more department stakeholder interviews. After that, we get into focus groups and field research, and a lot of it can get very time consuming, but it's also very, very, very helpful, and it allows us, when we compare the analytical with the anecdotal, we start to really see the story unfold. And then last but not least, end user polls, consumer surveys, things that go out to engaged audiences that are within your target audience, obviously. All this information pulled together starts to help you identify what are the rules, what are the things that people are doing over and over again that we can actually understand and take action on. So the next step is introduce and educate. As a marketer's objective, we need to introduce and educate in order to drive awareness. This is very simple. I mean, obviously, we want to be where they are. We want to know where they spend their time. They view ads. They view ads on video through images. These different destinations that people go online, we can of course target them in different ways. Ads are really great for intercepting. They don't do the greatest when you're trying to do efficiency, but they do really good at intercepting and driving new brand awareness. And if the messaging is on point and you're hitting them with the right content, with the right person at the right time, we'll always see a better performance at the very top of that journey. Ways to target them. Interest categories. What are they interested in? What are they interested in market audiences? I was showing you before about people spending time on real estate websites or in-market audiences that would tell us that they're spending time elsewhere, therefore we can maybe target them in the same way. Direct placements with websites, remarketing to them over, expanding our reach using new technologies like prospecting and lookalike targeting. All those types of things, again, play really well in that awareness stage. The way we measure success and awareness is just a few things here I wanted to call out. Brand lift survey, impressions, reach, frequency, video views, just to name a few, things that just are really important to us at this stage. We don't necessarily go into, conversion rate at this stage. It would be a really poor conversion rate. If the goal is awareness, these are the objectives or these are the KPIs that we want to actually pay really close attention to. But we want to graduate ourselves, right? We want to get to the next stage, so we got to get into consideration. Therefore, we need to create interest. This is just a really quick diagram of how we view approaching, delivering the right content to the right person in the right moment. So from the left-hand side, you have awareness, and over to the right-hand side, you have conversion. Things that people are interested in from a marketer's perspective that drive awareness, and things that we want to do to drive conversion. And then on the y-axis, we have rational and emotional. So the things in the upper left-hand quadrant are things that typically entertain. They're not really good at getting somebody to sign up for a pre-qualification on a loan or purchase a product online. They're good for entertainment, and that serves its own purpose, and that is certainly part of the consumer journey. Videos, quizzes, display ads, all kind of fall into that. Maybe rich media display ads that are fun. Most display ads aren't fun. On the upper right-hand side, we have Inspire, which is things like celebrity endorsements and reviews. These are things that do just a little bit more than educate and introduce the brand. This actually gets them to say, wow, that was a really good review, and that really inspired me. I want to actually take the next step now. In the lower left-hand quadrant, we have educate. These are great for the analytical-minded people, and it's also great for the marketer that wants to drive awareness. Infographics, guides, how-to steps, step-by-step process. Once we get a better understanding of the user, the consumer, and what they like, what they dislike, we actually know how to target them in this quadrant. Last but not least, we have convince, which is the best one because usually that's where you go for the sale, right? This is where you do the email offer, you do the flash sale, you do list out the product features that actually convinces them to purchase from you. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about search because I think everybody knows that search is a huge thing. What maybe everybody doesn't know yet, which has been announced recently, is that mobile searches are occurring more now than desktop searches. Mobile is where it's at. It needs to be first. If you're not doing that, please start doing it. This is what you're doing yourself every few minutes of the day, I bet you. Anyways, pulling out the phone while you're in line at a restaurant or wherever the case may be. So we're going to talk a little bit about why do people search and how search has changed. And I stole a few tidbits of information when I was in New York City last week with Advertising Week, and Yellow Pages was there with IDC sharing some really interesting facts, a whole lot of them actually that bored me to tears, but it was really good, and I just pulled a few out for you guys. First is how people search, or why people search online. And I thought this was really interesting, and I tend to agree with this. They search for three reasons. Number one is discovery. They want to discover something new. There may not have been a need that actually initiated that, but they just want to learn something new that they've never done before. So you have to ask yourself as a marketer, as a designer, as a copywriter, Ask yourself the question why and what, and who is doing that, and how often. The second behavior that they're seeing is immersion, which is I want to immerse myself into that topic, which they measured by people that transcend beyond one particular desktop search, but go onto the mobile device and search it there, but then they go into the Amazon app and they search it in the Amazon app as well, and they just do it all across the place. They want to get completely immersed. I go to the brand website if I want to see if Ray-Ban sunglasses are my kind of thing, or am I a Ray-Ban guy or am I an Oakley guy? I don't know. I'm not going to probably be able to tell that on the Amazon website, but the Amazon website is really good at selling me, right? But not necessarily convincing me. So you have to really think about it that way. Then there's navigation. This one annoys me, but it's true. People use search as a primary navigation tool. As an SEO background type person, my mom still types in a URL, like in the browser. I tell her don't do that, but she still does. It totally messes up all of our stats, but that's fine. Navigation is definitely something that people use search for, but it's really the two areas, discovery and immersion, that we want to take advantage of. So search has become very fragmented. As I mentioned before, local searchers in particular universally zigzag between different devices in different locations when doing their research. 64% of respondents started their specific search outside of a major search engine. This is the one that really blew my mind. But at the same time, I felt kind of silly for not really recognizing this already, because that's what I do. So if I need a water filter for my refrigerator, which happened a few weeks ago, I don't go to Google and search water filters. I go to Amazon and I type in water filter, and I get my water filter. It remembers my order from the last time, and I order it. To me, personally, that's happening to me a whole lot more now than just starting fresh and clean on Google or Bing or Yahoo and starting a search from scratch. So we really need to pay attention to that. Not of that 64%, there was another element in there, but 26% start on branded apps and 33% start on branded websites. So hence my Ray-Ban example. Am I a Ray-Ban kind of guy or am I an Oakley guy? I don't know. I bet you if I go to their website, it's going to be a better user experience than if I go to your typical retail online website. So search has become very fragmented. Time spent on mobile devices is steadily increasing. 89% of their time spent on media through 80% of their time is spent on media through mobile apps. That's huge, huge. And 11% of their time is spent on media through the mobile web. So I can understand why probably some of y'all were like, what? Open up my mobile web browser to play this Kahoot game? Like, we're just used to pressing icons, right? We're used to pressing apps. So how do we measure success through the consideration set? These are just a few, not all. It doesn't matter. These are what are important. Clicks, interactions, which are a little bit more involved than clicks. There are multiple things that happen within a rich media banner ad or your website itself. Engagement, how are they engaging with you? What's the rate of engagement? Big social metric. Community size, volume metric. Mobile app downloads, time spent on site, pages viewed, qualitative or qualifying type of metrics. All those things tell us, did we do a good job of driving that consideration? Then we get to persuade and compel. Now it's decision time, and we have them. Now what are you going to do with them? So there's a lot of ways I could talk about this. I could throw more stats your way. I'm not. I think I'm done with stats. 3 principles of what we like to say persuasive design really starts to kick in right now. This is where the person or the consumer is on your mobile app, they're on your website, they're in your store. Design and how you're persuading them, how you're appealing to their emotion, and how you're building trust with them now is absolutely critical. It really is critical through every step, but I wanted to hone in on this one because this is the moment to close the deal. So persuasion, principles that are used to encourage or discourage a user's behavior during a process. Emotion, principles that are used to encourage an emotional response during a process such as achievement, empathy, or surprise. And then there's trust, of course, showing that Better Business Bureau logo on the website or showing reviews and ratings and testimonials, all good trust builders. In fact, we've got a few of them here. Don't worry about writing all this down. This is just, I like to show this because there are a lot of things that you can do under each of those three areas. From a persuasion standpoint, you can take a lot of different tactical approaches. Decoy strategy, like you have the classic example of you have 3 plans, right? The $50 a month plan, the $100 a month plan, and the $500 a month plan. Nobody's going to buy the $500 a month plan necessarily. They're going to go for the $100 plan because that seems to have more value. The $500 a month plan is a decoy. It's a decoy strategy. It works very, very well. Social proof, seeing what other people say about something, believing in the word of mouth piece. From an emotional perspective, you're looking at the visceral and the behavioral type of responses that your creative is going to evoke in your users. You have to think about that, and you have to think about what moment are they going through and what device are they using so that you can do the best job that you can. And then, of course, trust. It's built on reputation. Good design itself builds trust in a way. Fine print, citations, does it have a privacy policy on the site, things like that. You have to check your boxes. So how do you measure success on decision time? Obviously, orders, right? We look at conversion rate, we look at revenue, we look at average order value, items per order, are items per order shrinking? Is that a problem? Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? We don't know. But we want to look at all that stuff. Eventually, what we want to try to get to is lifetime value, which is not just how much the value was of that order that that person did the first time, but what was the value of that customer over the entire lifetime with them. We're going to touch on creating loyalty just a little bit here because, again, this is a tough area to get to begin with, right? But once you can get to this area with your customers and they start to experience your brand, product, event experience, you can do a few things. I like to say that when you're, working with your fans online through social media, Facebook and Twitter, you're really just renting your audience because if Facebook decides to do something different, which they do every week, it's, you kind of have to really put your strategy through the works again and say, does this still make sense or not? Or you probably have a few processes that you need to change. But anyways, leveraging email to keep the conversation going, that's a really good thing. Obviously, you expect an order confirmation email to come, you expect that order shipped to come, but why aren't you doing a little bit more than that and trying to get them to engage in, sending over a testimonial or writing a review or following us on Facebook or Twitter or letting them know about an event that's coming up that your company's doing. I certainly am mostly disappointed all the time at these touch points that brands have with me as an opportunity, but they don't take it. Combine email and social together to engage and encourage sharing. Those two work together very, very well. And building a private community. If you can do this, this is the greatest thing. We've had an opportunity to do this with a couple brands. Building an actual private community. We still work with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram for our audiences. We show them a lot of love. We do a lot of things to give the fans what they want, but we had an opportunity with GLOCK to develop a private community for them to talk about gun safety and to talk about improving their skills at the range and getting better. They'll do a scan of their target and post it online for other people to see and say, wow, your groupings are a little bit to the left. You're probably pulling your thumb a little bit. It's really interesting. We've got 100,000 members now, and they are all talking and they're all earning points. And the more points that they earn, the more that they rank up. The more they rank up, the more they get rewards in the store for, hats and T-shirts and things like that. So if you can get there, it's pretty tremendous what you can do. Measuring success in this realm is sentiment analysis, it's ratings and reviews, it's testimonials, community size, private community size if you have one, and you can cultivate it, word of mouth, sharing, and referrals. So, in a nutshell, those are all the stages that the consumer goes through, but all those moments and all the touch points and all those kinds of things are pretty erratic, and you're not going to know what they are if you don't pay attention to the very first thing, which is understanding their needs in the moments. So I have a few examples to share with you guys, some things that we've done that I felt were pretty relevant to talking about consumer journey and how we leverage at Swarm the ability to try to see the future where we can and try to make our own predictions. We're working with a wireless company right now, and they needed some help. They had very, very flat growth. They were not happy with it, and we wanted to go in and just see what we could do to help. And we noticed a few things already because the analytics that they had were actually really good, and we were able to quickly see some things that stood out, like their highest converting audience was ages 65 and up. However, on their homepage, it had, millennials, right? Like young kids with their smartphones streaming video or whatever the case may be. We're like, that's interesting. So we tried to go a little bit deeper. We also saw that the lowest converting audience is 18 to 34 years old. We also saw that many of the site visitors are categorized as technophiles and movie lovers and TV lovers and news junkies, all pretty helpful information. Took it a step further and we saw, things like steady decline in conversion rates. Like, why is that? So we tried to dive deeper into that. What was really causing it? And we found out that mobile traffic had increased nearly 400% over the past year. Great, that's awesome. Usually that's great. Except for the fact that conversion rate from mobile devices was decreased by 50%, which was killing all the growth that they should have been getting. So we weren't really sure what was going on at the time. All we knew is there was some kind of problem there, and we wanted to investigate. We also saw that desktop users were 5% more likely to convert compared to mobile users, and people were more interested in the plans that they offered, not necessarily the phones or the coverage or other things like that. And we could easily see that just by looking into the web analytics. So this obviously gave us a lot of really good information to build a foundation off of to provide some recommendations and make some assumptions and make some educated guesses on what the consumer journey looks like for them and who they are, what they're searching for, why they're searching for it, and what's most important to them, and so on. Some of the results that we've had have been really great. In a fairly short amount of time, we've been able to really boost their visibility to the target audience by about 24%. We've increased the likelihood of the target audience clicking an ad by 26%, which is click-through rate. And we've seen a 13% increase in the likelihood of signing up for a plan, which is conversion rate. So dumbed down words, but you get the point. We're working with a mortgage company right now, and this is not the, I'm purposely showing these different frameworks because I want you to know that I'm not married to the framework that I just showed you. I just thought it was good for this presentation and for you as an audience. But this is what we put together for a mortgage company we're working with. We definitely saw an opportunity, a gap really to win in the areas of user experience and being a helpful, trusted advisor through the mortgage discovery process, not just the mortgage application process. And by understanding all the types of questions that people are asking before they ever even get to getting pre-qualified or getting their rates, we want to answer questions and understand behaviors that they have that are about searching for a house near them or how they're going to decorate the new rental multifamily unit home they're getting into and what kind of home is right for them. And all these types of questions, how much home do I want? How far do I want to commute? Is now a good time to buy? These are all consideration parts of the journey of the borrower, so to speak. So the user has some goals, the marketers have some goals, and from an experience standpoint, a user design standpoint, we have a lot of goals there. We want to build trust. We want to create a good experience for them. We want to build excitement and be direct and helpful. So this is just how we mapped it out for this particular case. But again, I just wanted to illustrate that don't get hung up on the terminologies, don't get hung up on the framework. Remember that you're a consumer too, and it can actually be pretty simple if you understand those individual rules that we all follow. And some of the tools that we use that I was sharing earlier through analytical research and anecdotal research get us there. This is an example of another framework that we've used that I also like, but it was right for them. And it was a fast food company that we worked with, and we basically just wanted to do an audit of their path to purchase. We wanted to show them, after doing a desk-based research, field research, some surveys, things like that we conducted. We gave them a green on driving awareness. We thought they were doing a really good job of that. Everybody seemed to know that they were providing this particular service that they wanted to push, but they were doing a really poor job of driving people into consideration, and we also added another one in there for preference. There was a lot of opportunities being missed from the standpoint of what they could be doing on search, what they could be doing from a content standpoint, and then providing helpful tools to the user. We gave them a yellow from going from preference to purchase. We saw opportunities. Some things were good, some things were not so good in that stage, and that's just kind of how we entered the conversation. It was very simple. In this case, we were dealing with pretty high-level people that just did not want to get into the minutia of conversion rates and CTR and all that kind of stuff. So again, that's why these frameworks are important. That's why you need to customize them and not get married to the terminologies and the frameworks themselves. So I've got 3 key lessons for you guys and a couple big takeaways to wrap things up. Number one, I think this is really important actually. Higher involvement products are researched more, obviously. Lower involvement products are quick to move through the journey. So you need to definitely take that into consideration when you're first looking at user needs and wants and desires and what moments they're in. If your product or brand or experience or event that you're trying to promote is high involvement, you got a lot more work to do, and you're going to probably need a bigger team or more level of effort to get your arms around it entirely. If not, you need to set those expectations ahead of time. So what we want to do is anticipate those micro moments that I was talking about earlier, be relevant to your consumers' needs, and move on to lesson 2. Know the business. Know the business as well as the business does themselves, and more importantly, know the consumer even better. This is the role that we play with our clients. We have an opportunity, we almost feel like a responsibility actually, to always do what's best for the user. The business usually does a pretty good job of minding the business, and sometimes they'll do a pretty good job of taking care of the consumer as well, but that's why we step in. We try to help out, be the user advocate and make sure that the user needs are met and make sure that the experience is what it should be or what it could be. So consider things like most search topics for your brand category, brand or your category. Grab your mobile device, try the searches yourself. I've run into all kinds of things that I've noticed that something was wrong in an area that I didn't notice before just by pulling out my own phone and checking a website. Are you there? Are you where you want to be? Do you need to be there? Are you only at the bottom of the funnel when people are in the buying mode? Or are you across the full range of consumer needs, wants, and desires? Or else are you also considering various contexts that they're in? And are you adjusting those strategies accordingly based on where they're coming from? Lesson 3 is, mobile plays a critical role. I can't really say it enough. I mean, I hope everybody knows that by now. Make it first in your priority for all of your research, not secondary. Consider the most searched topics. Again, all the same things, but just make sure that you have that mobile play in there as well, and think through there. So, just a couple final thoughts for you guys. Again, I want to just kind of bring it back to complexity, not complication, or any kind of complication that usually comes after complexity. It's already a very, very complex journey. Don't make it complicated, make it simple. Don't get hung up on frameworks and terminologies. Just know that the behaviors are what they are, know how to spot them, and what those simple rules are that stand out to you. Scientists, it seems to work for them on all the types of animal research that they do. I see it every day from our trade as well. And then last but not least, pay closer attention to your own journeys. I think this is one that we often forget. I certainly do. And get out there into the wild, ask questions, and get the experience you need. That's it. Thank you. We're going to do some questions. Okay. Any questions?
When you were talking about the wireless time, and you gave them those insights about who's using your site and who's converting not, how do they address that when if most of the users are those younger people, but it's an older set that is actually converting?
So we found a way to, I think, target the people that we wanted to target without alienating the brunt of the traffic, the volume of the traffic, right? And there are a lot of ways that you can do that. Not to get too tactical, but if we're trying to get an age group of 65 and up or 45 and up and not necessarily that 18 to 34 range, that's what paid media is really good for. We can turn on a dime and send people to a landing page or a mobile app, let's say, that targets that audience, right? So that first hit that they get with your brand, it's what they would expect to get because that's what the ad said. You want your ad to really be the same type of experience and creative and messaging as the landing page that you're delivering them to. So that was one of the ways. I think it was just kind of trying to find a balance. Obviously, we didn't just say throw all your money out here and put it all into this. It was more about adjusting our bids and making really tactical decisions that all kind of led up into that 1 + 1 = 3.
User polls. Was that prescribed that survey process, or was that like an individual survey from the top?
Oh, good question. So the triangle, no, it was all different processes that just kind of, honestly, I thought it was a good visual that explained that when we start off with stakeholder interviews, it's usually 1-to-1 or us and a team of people like a focus group. So it just like our sample size kind of gets broader, and then eventually when we get to polling and surveys, obviously, we can poll 50 people or 5,000 people. So it starts to get a bit analytical there, but we also have the opportunity to get their attention and ask the questions that help.
When I looked at how surveys first up one with the leader would be there to meet up with the actual
Yes. So I'm not sure what the question was.
No, I'm just saying that's how it is. Sort of make sure.
I think that's right. Yeah. Any other questions?
Another question?
When you talk about the lifetime value of a customer and cohort analysis and how that can kind of carry through the customer's life cycle and where they are in purchase, how do you, I mean, what analytical tools and what tools are being used to kind of make that lifetime value? How do you watch an individual consumer through the process and what their lifetime value is?
Yeah, so a lot of that really depends on, unfortunately, a lot of your client side or the brand side technology and their platforms. So if they're sophisticated enough and they're able to keep track of, customer A ordered this product in May 13 and then ordered another product again and again and again, and they have all that to tie together, it becomes a little bit easier. For the wireless company, for example, it's a monthly bill, right? So they have a database that allows them to see pretty clearly, what the average number of months people stay with them are, or years for that matter. So we just take that times what the average plan value is, and a few other little assumptions in the mix there, and we use that to justify ad spends and other types of efforts that we do.
Any other questions? All right.
Wait, I have another question. Okay, so back in the day, I had heard things like there's a certain number of touch points before someone, goes down that purchase funnel. Is there a trend now as to like how many touch points lead on TV? They hear an ad, they see an ad, then they get the word of mouth, and then they purchase. Is there a trend showing like how many touch points generally they can take?
There are definitely trends, but I just don't pay attention to them. I've seen so many conflicting things, and just, working with, trying to serve the client's needs and whatever that specific thing is, it just, honestly, I don't even care. All the little dots going down. Yeah. Well, what kind of, I'll pull it up, but you just tell me what kind of questions you had. Jeez, this was a long presentation. Thanks, guys. There we go.
All right, so for instance, the very first range of dots, the person goes from awareness to consideration and stops.
Mm-hmm.
So that journey's over.
That journey's over. They decided to go with somebody else.
Versus the one in the middle where they kind of come in and then there's the little arrow that comes back to consideration.
Mm-hmm.
I really lost some mind.
Okay, so to go a little bit detailed, I felt like this was somebody that just decided to go with somebody else, right? This path is your pretty basic path. One person decided that they were aware, they got their need filled a little bit more by considering, and then they fulfilled their need entirely, and then they experienced the product, but they didn't share anything, right? They didn't do anything. They just experienced the product. The next path there, they were aware of it, but they didn't even consider it. They didn't go any further past that. And then the next path, I wanted to kind of show a little bit more complexity, which is more of the reality, right? Is that you've got these two people. This person had 2 touch points in the awareness stage. Then they had 2 touch points in the consideration stage. Actually, I'm sorry, 3. And then this person had 3 as well, but they converged here. This is where they maybe commented on a Facebook post, or they tweeted at each other about the brand, or maybe the activation or the contest or the promotion that the brand was doing, or maybe the person shared out to get a coupon offer, and the other person touch pointed with the other person, and they intersected. We try to do that all the time on social media activations, or just more holistic marketing plans. It's like, how can we get users to obviously share the message with somebody else? And I see that as kind of like an intersection. So you have 2 people that kind of have the same needs, and then they almost met each other in a way that was thanks to the brand's campaign or the product promotion, and they just intersected. So I see that as highly valuable. I want to know more about that, because if I get more of that to happen, I can try to drive them into decision. So that's what I mean by that. And then this guy here, he decided to share back that same thing, whatever it was, and this person did not. So that's just my brain.
So her question about how many touch points, if there were 5 touch points in the awareness stage, there would be 5 individual dots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every dot is a touch point. Yeah. That's just kind of, again, how my brain works a little bit, and I wanted to kind of, show some of the complexity without it being too complicated. But yeah.
How did they do compared to last year? Cool.
I've got a weird question, only because I did this just now. Is that like Star Wars has a new game called Battlefront, and they just released the beta. And
The beta went out at midnight last night, yes I know.
Yeah. So I didn't find out about it until just now, and so I quickly got on my phone and got the beta. Now, would the beta be considered a part of the consideration process? Because I'm downloading the beta and I haven't actually made the purchase of the game itself.
That's a good question. Yeah. So you definitely were already aware that Star Wars Battlefront existed, right? So maybe the video is attributed, right, to maybe getting you aware of it. So the video, boom, measure of success, video view, got it. Download, I would definitely attribute that to consideration because you're not buying it. It's a trial. So I would definitely put it into the consideration set. You haven't bought it yet, but you get to try before you buy, which is great. Works really good for the software industry. I would definitely put that in the orange.
Okay.
Good question. Good topic. All right, anything else? About 3 minutes over.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you coming out.